Now, foldables used to be all about the hype, right? But this Z Flip7 now has a full-size outer display than before, a bigger battery, and is thinner than before. So this brings us to two questions. Number one, did Samsung finally get the Flip series right? And number two, is it finally time for you to switch from a regular phone to a flippable form factor like this, especially if it's your first time? Now let's talk about the biggest change that Samsung has made. This new flex window is no longer a gimmick because it is fully grown up. Now, not only you get a full 4.1-inch Super AMOLED here, but compared to before, it is fully stretched to every side of the phone with barely any bezels. But what makes this even better is the fact that it also runs at 120Hz, so everything feels very smooth and snappy even on this cover screen. And second of all, it also gets really bright at 2600 nits of peak brightness, which means that you can see this particular cover screen very nicely outdoors, something that the older flips struggle with. And even with some non-flip phones or regular phones, does not have this high brightness value. So in terms of functionality, this lets you do more compared to how it was before, because you can also use things like Gemini directly over here, check notifications, reply to messages, or even control your music and even use Google Maps, all without flipping open the phone. But if you want to have practically everything to run on this particular screen, like say Instagram or YouTube, just like the previous Z Flip, you can always download the Good Lock app on Samsung's very own Galaxy store. But while Samsung's native apps runs very well, even apps like YouTube, but other apps like TikTok or games like Genshin Impact does not do a very good job, especially with this different or the unique aspect ratio. But despite all of that, it is still a very cool thing to do, especially if you're someone who's been on a regular phone. Having this type of an easy access screen is definitely nice without really expanding your phone screen. So my tip is to have your frequently used apps on the Good Lock launcher widget on the cover screen for you to easily access it without opening the whole phone to use. And it will make you feel nice to be able to use your phone most of the time every single day without even opening the phone, as mentioned earlier. Now for my case is opening apps like YouTube or even my messaging apps like Telegram and also WhatsApp as well. So yes, this idea of using this phone like this is flipping refreshing. Now apart from the obviously larger cover screen, the phone is very similar to the design of the Z Flip 6. Now Samsung has already perfected the overall design of the modern Flip, so there isn't much that can be improved on that front. It has a nice flat matte finish sides, and following the previous Flip, it also has a matte glass back, which means no ugly fingerprints or smudges anywhere on the phone. And among all, I went with this shadow blue because I like how it looks like. Of course, as a Liverpool fan, this blue looks more like Chelsea, but since I love Vernon, it's fine. Then the hinges this time, it is smaller than the previous Flip 6, but it's also a lot stronger too. So it makes opening and closing the phone very robust and doesn't have that feeling like the phone will fail you anytime soon. But that was also not the case when it comes to using the Flip 6. So robustness and overall durability, Samsung has always been on top. Now it is more than a millimeter thin than before, and this makes it also less chunky in the hand, and it's a lot less bulky when you put this inside your pocket, something that you might be thinking about or worrying about if you're using a phone like this for the very first time. Now it also comes with IP48 rating, which means that you can't swim underwater with this, but a simple light splashes or even the rain, you're totally fine. Now material wise, you get the Corning Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on the outside, and of course when you open it up, the Samsung's ultra thin glass or the UTG on the inside. You also get a very good pair of stereo speakers, and the power button is also a fingerprint sensor as well. So all in all, Samsung has taken everything good on the Flip 6 and gave this a massive booster jab. It's just like Steve Rogers from Captain America. And the good news is that if you're like me who loves to type the phone on a surface, because of the camera bumps are raised equally, you can type the phone on a surface without any wobble at all. Something that we cannot say about the Z Fold 7, but I'll save that point for my in-depth review of the Z Fold 7, so stay tuned for that. Then the inner display now is a bigger 6.9 inches compared to 6.7 inches. It also has the same 120Hz adaptive refresh rate and the same peak brightness value as the flex window. Then Samsung also tuned this with the vision booster, a very unique thing for Samsung screen, and this is what makes Samsung's flip phones nicer to look at compared to any other flips out there, because it is very vibrant and very visible even in direct sunlight. Now, because it is slightly taller in the overall build, even taller than the Z Fold7 closed. If you want to compare the usage on both, you will see a little more content when scrolling on the new Z Fold7, but it still keeps this at the 22:9 aspect ratio that makes watching videos feel a bit more natural. Now, speaking of watching videos naturally, I'm sure if you're a first-time flip or foldable user, you will be worried about the crease, right? Well, Samsung has really outdone itself with that. Well, this is one of the least obvious creases that I've seen on any foldable, like for example the Xiaomi Mix Flip. But yes, you'll only notice the crease when you have the light hitting at a certain angle. But of course, your experience will be better with this flippable form factor because of the fact that you can play your YouTube videos at the top half and then have like a player type controls and scrolling at the bottom half. Now, this may sound like a small thing, but trust me, when you start using this particular flip form factor, you can't go back. Now, if you're thinking that this has better cameras than last year, well, here's where Samsung played it safe. But it is really good for a flip phone like this. Now, if you're a first-time user of this form factor, the biggest thing that you can do with this is the fact that the phone can stand by itself, so you can always take a picture like this or even put it on a table, which is perfect for you if you're always taking pictures or videos of yourself like TikTok or even Instagram Reel. And this Flex Cam software adjustments also helps you to reframe you accordingly. But as for the camera itself, just like last year's Flip 6 or even compared to current flagships, it did produce some very nice and great photos during the day and night as well. But of course, the biggest flex of this phone is taking photos and videos on your own while having this particular screen to see to make sure that you're in the frame all the time. But this phone is not only good for that, because you can also take some good POV shots as well, whether or not you're using this on the flex mode or just like a regular phone like this. But here's a quick vlogging test for you to hear how well the audio recording is on this particular phone. Alright, this is a quick vlogging test using the rear cameras of the cover screen right now, which is framing me up nicely. The overall exposure is great, the dynamic range is nice, and since it's nicely resting on my palms, which means that the overall stabilization is extra amazing as well. But of course, this is a vlogging test for you to hear how it sounds from an audio perspective. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. So test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Now, if you guys are finding this video helpful so far, do give this video a nice big thumbs up. That would be great to tell YouTube that this video was good. And a subscription would be lovely too. So thank you, and thank you very much in advance. Now, there's been a lot of talk about Samsung's Exynos chips, on how it is supposedly inferior to the Snapdragon counterparts. And people have been voicing their concerns, or should I say their disappointment, when it was first announced that this phone would come with the Exynos 2500 chipset rather than the Snapdragon 8 Elite chipset like the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold7. But unless you're a super hardcore mobile gamer who's totally sensitive to what hardware your phone has, then you won't really notice any performance issue here at all. Because this phone runs everything that I threw at it quite well, with rarely any problems, because games like Genshin Impact, COD Mobile, and even the new Persona 5, the Phantom X, all of them ran great on the higher settings at the max frame rates. But I did notice that the phone got quite warm after an hour of gaming, not cooked your egg hot, but more like warm Milo hot. So yeah, don't let those loud Snapdragon fans get you down, because this Exynos 2500 chipset is a fine chip for a phone like this. So performance-wise, just like your usual flagship that you're used to, this won't disappoint. Now, the phone comes with a slightly bigger battery compared to last year, a 4300 milliamps versus the Flip 6 with 4000 milliamps. Now, I managed to squeeze easily a 2-day battery life on this, with about 5 hours of screen on time, which was way better than last year's Flip, which gave me roughly about 3.5 hours or so. And this is with me using a good mix of continuous gaming, YouTube binging, and of course a whole lot of emails and messaging on WhatsApp and Telegram, and my usage usage most of the time was on 5G with a physical SIM card when I was using this phone daily, which is really good for a flip form factor like this. Then as for charging, Samsung has not made any improvement on the charging speed this time around compared to last year. So yeah, it is still at 25 watts of the max speed charging, which is rather slow for today's standards. So yes, we would definitely prefer a better charging speed, at least the same 45 watts of charging speed as the S25 series. But I do understand why they didn't have a faster charger, because of the very unique form factor and of course trying to minimize the risk of having a very huge battery in this particular form factor given what has happened in the past. So yeah, hopefully we will see a better battery size, or at least a better charging in the future. Now the Flip 7 comes with One UI 8.0 out of the box, which means that you get all the latest AI that Samsung has to offer with their Galaxy AI and of course Google Gemini as well. Now this includes the Now Brief, the live translation, generative photo editing, circle to search with Google and more. But the big win here is longevity, because Samsung promises 7 years of software and security updates. So this makes the Flip 7 one of the longest supported Android phones ever. And just like how you can get a video player controls when watching YouTube videos at the bottom, you can also get other controls at the bottom as well, where by default you can also act as a trackpad where you have a little mouse, and also at the right hand side there's like a scroll wheel to scroll down and bottom to navigate around almost with every apps. And it's so useful not only when it comes to navigation or on website navigation, but also very useful for apps like Canva, since it turns this to a sort of a mini laptop, where you also have other options as well, like the split screen to open up another app, open the notification menu, take a screenshot at the top area of the screen, or you can even toggle the trackpad and scroll wheel to turn on or off. And finally, there's even more settings that you can access over here too. Now speaking of Galaxy AI, this particular form factor also makes it very easy to do real-time translation too, with the translation appearing at this particular cover screen, which I did a whole video series on the Galaxy AI on this particular flip form factor last year, so do check it out if you guys haven't. And also DeX, or Samsung DeX, has finally arrived on the Samsung flip phone. Now in case you didn't know, that it is Samsung's desktop-like feature where you can just plug this into a monitor just using a USB-C cable, where you get a full desktop experience. And that to me was a really game-changing decision from Samsung, because imagine this small little fella, you can easily put it in your pocket, and when you take it out, you can plug in into your monitor just like a gremlin when it hits water. So yeah, quite a powerhouse. So that is a very good reason if you never used a foldable like this, because it does give you that kind of a desktop-like experience very much easily. Now if you'd like to have a written recap of everything mentioned in this video, we do have one, because you can check out our written version of this video at our website at www.adamlobo.tv, where we also have some daily tech news over there too. So with all of this, I feel that Samsung has finally nailed it when it comes to the hardware and software on this Z Flip 7. They've got almost everything right: a bigger battery, brighter display, a sturdier build, and a proper long-term support. Then as for this flex window, isn't just for notifications anymore compared to before, because it is now fully functional as a full-fledged phone, even when your device is folded in half. But it's not perfect, because there are some compromises as mentioned earlier, like the charging speeds. But if you want a cool compact foldable that is more practical than ever and have been thinking to switch from a regular phone to a flip form factor like this, then the Flip 7 is definitely it.